Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome this morning. As usual, I'm doing I feel like so many things early in the morning, and also getting up and promoting the show again before we go live on the air. So I want to thank everybody and our guests who I'm excited. This show is a little different. We have had a guest cover this topic. So when I was researching for the show, I said, wow, this is deja vu. I feel like we had a topic like this on before, which is we could never cover this topic enough. There's so many people dealing with stress and anxiety. They are losing things they've spent years working for. It can impact your marriage. It's actually one of the leading causes of divorce. It can impact your marriage. It can impact just even your emotions, your psyche, and you'll find out as you continue to listen to today's show what it is that I'm referring to. But this guest, she shares some tips, things she's learned along the way that could help you to avoid a lot of stress that could actually even take on physical symptoms and illnesses. And there's ways to avoid it. So she's going to share some of those tips with us. They go beyond the surface. This is a topic that can have a deep and a lasting impact on you and your family. But as I started doing this a couple of shows ago, I just want to drop a thought into your mind. And today's thought is from Steve Jobs, and it is, your time is limited. And here on this earth, it actually is. Your time is limited. Don't waste it living someone else's life. And actually, it's the pursuit sometimes of trying to get other people's approval that can get us into the ditches that today's guest, the topic she covers, can help take you out of, trying to impress other people. But again, your time is limited. Don't waste it living someone else's life. And again, that's from Steve Jobs. And I want to welcome all of you to this March the 11th, 2017 Off the Shelf. You are listening to the winning book radio show, Off the Shelf. Remember, I don't want to forget to remind you guys, this weekend is daylight savings time. So I know here in Georgia it clicks in at 2 a.m. I believe it's on Sunday morning. So you want to be sure before you go to bed tonight to set your clocks forward an hour. Remember, you spring forward an hour, fall back an hour. So this is daylight savings time, and it won't end until sometime in November. But we'll get more daylight. We'll get more time to enjoy the sunshine, which is a good thing. But maybe you want to head to bed a little earlier because you're going to lose an hour of sleep. So remember, daylight savings time this weekend. Set your clock forward an hour before you head to bed tonight. And next I want to ask you guys, how good of a mystery sleuth are you? Are you good at fingering the person who's responsible for a murder mystery? Do you think you can figure out who done it in the murder mystery and Love Pour Over Me? And this is also a book, if you value relationships and love, and how long would you wait to experience a once-in-a-lifetime romance with somebody that you were intended and destined to meet? How long would you wait? You might be surprised what happens with Raymond and Brenda again in Love Pour Over Me. This relationship book also deals with friendship relationships and a very complicated relationship between Raymond and his father, who has untreated alcoholism. I really, really encourage you to get a copy of Love Pour Over Me. It's in ebook and in print form. If you don't see it on a bookstore shelf, just ask the clerk, say, I'd like to get a copy of Love Pour Over Me by Denise Turney. Look, you can get an ebook for less than $4. It's like next to nothing. And it's almost 300 pages. Again, Love Pour Over Me by Denise Turney. I hope you get a copy and let me know how you enjoy Love Pour Over Me. And now let us go and meet our very special off-the-shelf guest. And our guest today is covering a topic I think, again, we covered once before. And as I was researching it, I just had so much deja vu feeling as I was researching for today's show. But our special guest this morning is Dr. Lois Center-Shabazz. And Lois Center-Shabazz, she is a personal finance counselor. At the start of hearing the word finance or money management, financial advisor, although you have to have your licenses to give out financial advice if you're advising people on shares to buy and sell and things like that. But a personal finance counselor and a public speaker, you don't know how many people are walking around in stress right now due to something that has to do with their finances. Some people go into bad relationships, actually, and stay in them because they think they don't have the money to make it on their own. So this is a really, really important topic. And Dr. Lois Center-Shabazz, she also teaches people how to budget, invest in their future, pay off student loans, and manage their personal and business cash flows, which is very important. She is the author of the Live Rich, Save Money book series, and there's several books in that series. You can check her out online, even as you listen to her show here on Off the Shelf this morning. She's at MissFinancialSavvy.com, and it's spelled the way it sounds, and that's MissFinancialSavvy.com, and I'll spell it again, M as in Mary, S as in Sam, FinancialSavvy, S as in Sam, AVVY.com, MissFinancialSavvy.com. Welcome to Off the Shelf, Lois.
Hi, Denise. How are you doing today?
I am so blessed. I'm so blessed and happy to have you on here to talk about a topic. We know we've got people getting ready to get their income tax returns. Some already may have received their income tax returns. And the first thing to do is, how can I spend this money? What can I do?
Well, what you first need to do is think about that before you get the money and not after you get the money. Okay, most people ignore the money they've already spent, and they go and make bills instead of either, one, paying off old bills or just buying something cash. Two, that's where we get this debt snowball, where people are constantly, I have an extra $2,000. I can go out and buy something for $5,000. Well, you're not buying it, you're making a bill. And so we got to get out of the bill mindset or making the bills. We got to get into, if you're ever going to be comfortable with your life, with your finances, you have to get to the point where you're actually living off your money and not off huge debt payments. Of course, we're going to all have some debt, but the issue is, how much debt can I afford? How much debt am I comfortable with? How much debt can I have if I get sick? How much debt can I have if I lose my home? It's all the if, the what ifs. Not enough people ask the what ifs and run their lives by the what ifs. Sounds a little paranoid, but it's not, because just like you said, people stay in bad relationships because they don't have enough money.
Mm-hmm.
It's called planning ahead, and it's called depending on yourself first. One person I talked to, when I said everybody, when they get married, they should always have a job, the woman as well as the man. I know that we have stay-at-home everything, but there are things you can do to make money staying at home. But you can also, especially if you have children and relatives who can help you with them, get a job, get your own finances, save your own money, and then put money together and make financial decisions together. Keep debt low. That's a real key right there, is keeping debt low. But also you mentioned staying in a bad relationship because of the money, and a lot of people do that because they didn't plan ahead. They didn't concentrate as much on developing themselves, getting their own income, paying their own bills, as they did, I'm going to find somebody else to do it for me. There really is not a Prince Charming. Sure, a lot of us have good marriages. We have good husbands who make a lot of money, but you still have to do the what ifs.
Yeah,
and that's where, pardon?
A lot of women, when they get divorced, that's when a lot of women go into sometimes a darn near poverty type state because
exactly.
they're not prepared.
The percentages, no matter how you cut it, no matter how you study it, no matter who studies it, the percentage of divorced women in poverty is much higher than divorced men, and because women, when they get married, don't think they're going to get divorced. Oh, I'm not getting divorced. Oh, I have a wonderful husband. Okay, of course you do. Everybody does, okay? We all got wonderful husbands. I have a wonderful husband, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But I made sure I was a dentist. That was my first trade. I practiced for 20 years. And one of the things that I made sure of, because I do practice what I preach, is I made sure that I paid off my student loans, paid off my credit card, got my dental practice going well, and then I got married. Took a little while, but then I got married. Then I was financially stable when I went into a marriage with a good person making good money, but I wasn't dependent. And then I was able to start my personal finance business also, switched careers. That was because of, a number of different things. I started moving around, but I had options. And the one thing that women have to do is they have to be realistic about the divorce plus separation statistics. They sound a little lower than they actually are because, they don't give statistics on separations or people who never got their divorce. And so women need to be a lot more realistic about that so they don't end up in that poverty cycle. I mean, it's great to be a bubbling stay-at-home mom, but you also have to be realistic about taking care of yourself if something were to happen, and I've had, women tell me, well, we have life insurance if my husband dies, or, well, what if the premium lapses, or I have a great husband, or, I can always, just jump out there and do something, but you haven't done anything for 5 years. Nobody's going to hire you. I was an employer, and the first thing I looked at was when I hired girls is, have you been working the last couple of years? Even if it was at McDonald's, I wanted them to have a job before I considered them. Even after they went to school to get dental assisting or dental hygiene, I still wanted them to have worked for a while as an employer. So,
yes, you know what? I want to. You have so much to share, and I really want people to grab this because money impacts. Oh my goodness, the money that's donated to scholarships and people who have money, they really build up their communities. I know when I lived in Knoxville, it was a gentleman, I don't remember his name, but Knoxville didn't used to have so much going on. It doesn't have a lot of arts there now, but it's a lot more than it used to be. There was a guy who was from the city, said, if I ever make it, I'm going to come back and help build this city up, and he did. The same is happening with Detroit. The guy who owns the Cleveland Cavaliers is from Detroit, and he's pumped a lot of money into the city. So when you manage your finances well, you can help others. Bill and Melinda Gates, the scholarships they give away, you can really help bless other people's lives tremendously when you manage money and you start to grow your wealth. Before we go further into the questions, and there's so much to cover, we're not going to be able to get through everything in 1 hour. But just for people who are not familiar with you, Dr. Center-Shabazz, I know you said you were a dentist, but can you just tell our listeners where you grew up, just to give them some background on you, where you grew up and what life was like for you growing up?
Well, I did not come from a privileged family. I grew up in a working class family. My dad worked in a field of construction, and my mom, she was a seamstress. She stayed at home, but she was a seamstress. But they were both big budgeters. They budgeted money, and they lived tight. We did have a lot of kids in our family, like 9 to be exact. And okay. She taught all the girls to sew and all the boys how to work. My dad taught the boys how to work on cars. So we were very functional family with the money we had. And most of us went to college. I went on scholarships and a little loan, a small loan for college. At that time, college was very inexpensive. The University of California is where I went to college. And then I went on to dental school. That's sort of where my debt program came into play, my low and no debt program, because I went to a private school. When I went because they gave me a total that was like half of what it actually ended up being. They didn't tell me that the tuition could go up pretty drastically in a private school while you're there. And so I ended up with a lot more in student loans than I thought I would. I mean, it was like a nightmare when I got out, but I made every payment because of my debt-free. I was insistent on living a tight. I did mega money management from the time I got out of dental school, and I prided myself on the fact that I made every payment and extra the payments, and I paid it off in not a short amount of time, but a decent amount of time. I didn't let it go too far, and of course, during the course of the time, sometimes I had to charge on credit cards, and then I would periodically run up credit card bills, but then I'd get those paid off because of my program. And then, of course, later I started a dental practice after working for 5 years and paying down my student loans and my credit card bills and learning something about the trade from other dentists. I practically became a beggar to get a loan because business loans aren't easy to get. Now, of course, they're much harder. Dentistry is much more expensive to practice. I actually went to 13 banks. A few of them just told me to get out. I don't want to talk to you because I was – at 31, I looked like 18, 20. I looked very young I've always looked young for my age. And so I finally found an older gentleman who was very kind, and he said after getting my packet, my business loan packet was so big by the time I got to him, because everybody would tell me, well, what you need to do is this and that, add this and add that. And so by the time I got it to him, it was pretty precise, and I got the loan. And I started my practice, and I learned, because I almost borrowed as much for my dental practice as I had in student loans, but at this, I learned how to pay off loans, so I paid it off in 4 years instead of, I borrowed about $40,000 for dental school. It was a payback of $80,000 because there was a couple of high interest loans in there, and it took me about 10 years. 10, 11, but my dental practice loan, it was $60,000 with an $80,000 payback, and it took me 4 years. I said, I'm getting this paid off. They said you could have as much as 10 years, and I said, no, I'm getting on with my life. I'm getting debt out of my life because it is like a boulder on your back, especially student loans, since you cannot file bankruptcy on those. And those loan servicers just take you around, walk you around loops. Student loans are probably one of the biggest and worst debacles right now in the life of the average American.
Wow.
You really have to know what, pardon?
Because of how they're set up. They're set up for the lenders to make out.
Right. They're set up to make money for the institutions that give them to you, the schools and the lenders, and they're set up to make the borrower very, very, very poor because of the way the interest rates are structured, especially if you get an unsubsidized loan. People go to college or graduate school, and they don't even know the difference between a subsidized versus an unsubsidized loan. I had a young girl contact me, and she said, could you please help me? I borrowed $25,000 for graduate school. She didn't have to borrow anything for college. Her dad paid for it. But she said, for graduate school, I borrowed $25,000. And they sent me another bill that says that we're adding $35,000 to your loan. And she told them, you're crazy. The loan is $25,000. And they said, no, it's going to be another $35,000 because we had to apply interest while you were in graduate school. And she says, you didn't make that clear to me. And they said, well, you're supposed to read the fine print. So she ended up paying her balance ballooned from $25,000 to $65,000, and the payments, they said, told her payments would be $1,200 a month. She said, "You are absolutely out of your mind." She says, "I don't bring home $1,200 a month." What am I going to do? Live on the street? Panhandle? Give you my paycheck and panhandle for the rest? But those are the types of situations these students are getting themselves into because they are not making it clear. Under President Obama, he started a program where they could pay based on their income, but then it stretches out your loan more to like 20, 25 years. Who wants to be paying on a student loan for 20, 25 years? Now, with her, when she negotiated with him, they negotiated down to $900, but she still couldn't afford that payment, which is, you're right out of college. That's astronomical. And then so she could get the income-based repayment program, but that's for the federally insured loans. I mean, all these caveats. I mean, you just really, really got to read the fine print these days. But the best thing is if you she had a degree. This is what I would have did if she would have come to me earlier. She had a degree. Get a job. Use your degree. You didn't have any loans. The goal is to not have student loans.
Yeah.
And a lot of people go to the advertised schools. You see them advertised constantly on television. They call them the for-profit schools. There was a lot of negative publicity because a lot of them were sued because the kids were saying that they didn't get what they were promised, and then they try to get a job, and the employers were saying, well, we don't recognize those degrees. Well, now some of them are advertising that they have suddenly become nonprofit, but they're still the for-profit schools. They still have quick classes and huge student loans, and those student loans are really not explained. People are telling me they didn't explain to me. I mean, girls were coming out of the one school that was sued. It was all over the internet. She had $70,000 worth of student loans, and all the employers that she went to said, "Well, we don't recognize this school for employee. We don't hire from that school. Period. We don't recognize your degree." And so I can't stress enough: research, research, research. Don't make your decisions from propaganda, from advertising.
Yeah, right.
Try to stick with your public education, the public schools, low interest loans, small loans. Your loan should be less than what you could make your first year out of school. Of course, that's difficult. How much money am I going to make? I mean, you might make $25,000. Let's lowball it, okay? And what does that mean? The maximum you should take out at any school, try to stick with the state schools unless you're rich. I mean, if your parents are rich or you get a guaranteed full scholarship, it doesn't matter. But not very many students have that situation, period. Most students have to depend on student loans. And so,
but if you get a federal loan, and then you do have to read them because you can get them from several different institutions. So you think you're getting a loan from one organization, and you end up owing interest to 5 or 6 different lenders. But I will say the one good thing about a federal loan, they cap it. After a certain amount,
they're subsidized.
They're not going to give you any more money. They're not. It's not the sky is the limit, and then you're going to absolutely bury yourself. They cap it at a certain amount, and then you just don't get no more. And then you could go private if you wanted to. That is one good thing about going with a federal. They do put some type of protection in there so you don't just keep taking out one loan after the next, after the next, after the next. There is some protection.
But then the flip side of that, Denise, is that, okay, they cap it, but this has happened to a lot of students. They run out of money for their at the end of their sophomore or junior year. So where does that leave them? With no degree. And they have student loans. And that's another reason why you absolutely have to read the fine print. You need to know how much the schools cost. I mean, sometimes it's hidden deep in the hidden deep in the website, but you can find it. It's there, all the costs. Private schools, like I said, have a lot of hidden costs. They're a lot more money than public schools, but you have to know all your costs, and you have to know if the maximum of a federally subsidized loan. Of course, some people don't qualify for those because their parents' income is $500 too much. I mean, I've heard people tell me that. $1,000 too much, and that's the yearly income. So they have to jump out to unsubsidized loans. And if you can find someone to pay that interest payment while you're in school, that's fine. But a lot of people don't even know they have that option. They don't read enough to know that option. They just think, well, I just have federally insured loans. Well, that's the unsubsidized. Okay, where you get those really crazy.
Yep.
loans and payments and institutions, but you want to try to stick with the federally insured, subsidized, and make sure that you can pay off your education in 4 years and get your degree with that money. Or you can go to family. I've helped 3 family members with their education because my husband and I, we didn't want them to get into that loan trap. Well, I call it the student loan trap.
Right. Or you might have to work part-time. I know some people who've worked part-time taking some loans, but they also you had to go, they went out and got a gig and paid part of it with what they made from work, and then the rest. But you do have to make sure the school is reputable, that employers, you can't look at ads on TV. It's tricky. When you see an ad on TV, you often think if it's something related to the Food or Drug Administration that the FDA's approved it or the FCC's approved it, and that's not always the case. So, but you can come away with that delusion that, okay, it's ads on public TV airing in the middle of the day. This has got to be a good thing. It may not be. Lois, there's so many questions I want to get to. I wanted to ask you first. You started out yourself going to school, and you became a dentist, and you said, I'm going to pay these loans off. But you're early in your career. Most of us, no matter how much our parents might drum it into our heads, we think, I'll get this credit card, I'll do this, and somehow it'll magically work out. I think a lot of people handle finances I'll go out and get these shoes, I'll get these new clothes, and my mortgage or my rent will just magically get paid. And people don't, I don't know where that comes from. It might be a carryover where we're not ready to be adults yet, and our parents just magically made things work, and we keep expecting that to happen even though we're in our early 20s or 30s. But all that shared, so you didn't fall into that trap. Was there a challenge that you faced, a financial challenge that you faced that caused you to say, you know what, I'm going to become a personal finance counselor and help other people avoid this same thing?
Well, trying to live a normal life and pay my student loans, it was tough. It was really tough, but I did it. And acquiring credit card debt, it was tough, but I paid them off. And so once everything was all cleared up, I started a long time ago after I got my dental practice studying investing, mutual funds, stocks, money management, because I needed to make money off my dental practice. It's not as easy as people think it is because they keep changing the reimbursement rates to dentists, the insurance companies. We have our usual and customary fees, and that's the top fee you can charge a patient, but the insurance companies will, we have a lot of PPOs, and they will decrease the payments and say, okay, you can't see our patients unless you see them for 30 or 40% discount. So that made it tough. So I said, I was young. I was only like 35 when I started studying stocks and mutual funds, because I said, someday I want to retire. You know, I want to retire, and I don't have a job. I had a business. It's a big difference between a job and a business. You know, when you have a job, you have 2 weeks vacation pay, you have a 401k plan.
Yep.
But you don't have that. You have disability payment. But when you have your own business, you have to pay into disability. You have to get your own 401k type of plan. You have to save money. You have to save money for your own vacation. And so you have to either a lot of businesses, I read over and over again, most businesses go bankrupt within the first year, and another set up to 5 years. And I'm like, that's impossible. How could that happen? But once you do it, you see how easy it is, because you really, really, really have to be disciplined with money. And that's where I started my quest. I said, I am going to do this. I am going to be disciplined with money. I'm going to be successful at my business. My example was my parents. They didn't have a lot of money, but they did a lot with the money they had. And so I did have an example to fall back on. But even if you don't have that example, you can learn from others. Like I have mentees. I am a mentor for some young people who have gotten themselves into some trouble, and I at various stages we've come together. I met them, but I try to I think they probably listen to me better than they listen to their parents. The worst thing to do is to grow up in a household where your parents spoil you, because you lose that sense of reality with money. And that's hard to get back as an adult if you do it for years and years and years. Just here, you can have whatever you want. Mommy and daddy will buy you whatever you want, because, we make a lot of money, and you'll always have a lot of money because, we're sending you to school and you're used to money, and like osmosis, you're going to learn how to manage it. That'll come, but it never comes. And so, but it did come for me. That's where I got it from, and that's where I got my years of once I got the money management thing, I knew I had to learn investing, because I tried to use brokers. I'm sure there's really good financial advisors out there and brokers. I call myself a money strategist, okay? And I help small business entrepreneurs, coaches, bloggers, and homemakers to create their money management program. And it includes my trio. And that came from years of my experience of guerrilla budgeting, is what I call it, sane savings. You got to have savings accounts. I have several, okay, and then investment insights. When I tell people, and that's because everything we use is a part of a publicly traded company. So you might as well get in on that. The easiest and most efficient way to invest is through mutual funds, low cost, low risk mutual funds. That is where my expertise is, and that's what I teach people. But when I tell them that their savings is a part of, people say, I budget. I'm like, okay, how much do you save every month? Save? I don't have any money to save. How much do you save? You don't save anything? Well, put your savings in your budget. Oh, I didn't think about that. I guess I could have put some. I said, no, you can. Take another look at your budget. I have several savings accounts that come out of my budget. Automatic. I don't even look at it. They just comes right out of my budget into my investment accounts.
You know what they say, pay yourself first. And you kind of led into a question that I wanted to ask you. I've worked at a consulting firm, and it's a global consulting firm. And what they found was that, and I recently saw an article where Americans have more money than ever, but we're not saving. And this has been a long-standing issue. I can remember when I worked at a financial services company, they would go out and do free trainings, these different companies, because if the individual American and American family isn't financially strong, these companies can have a ton of money, but it's not enough to make the economy strong. Every individual, every family has got to be financially solvent if possible. Big businesses just can't have big pockets. Individuals and families have to make a country economically strong. But they found that even people making $80,000 a year, they said most Americans didn't even have $400 put away. And I found that, somebody barely getting by, because some people work 2 and 3 jobs, but their jobs are minimum wage, and it just is not a lot of money. But when you make $80,000 a year and you don't even have $400 saved, I found that mind-blowing. And they did too, the consulting firm. So that said, why is saving and this is something that's been going on for decades, way before the recession in the American economy. Why is it so difficult for Americans to save even $500?
It's not difficult. They just don't choose not to do it. It's something that has not been ingrained in our society as a normal part of our culture, saving money. What's been ingrained, who has control, what I say is who has control of the media controls your mind if you're not careful. And so people, they adopt this I gotta have it syndrome. Once you can get rid of your I gotta have it syndrome and I understand what I really need to do syndrome, then you can start saving. And so, but there are people who make $800,000 a year and don't have any savings, because instead of when they start climbing up financially or income-wise, when they start climbing up, instead of saying, well, okay, I'm going to get a really nice $600,000, with $800,000 income, a $600,000 house is just, you can get a nice $600,000 house in most communities, not the really expensive community, not the real high-income communities on the West Coast, but there are still communities where you can get a really nice house. But instead of that, they go, they go to a mortgage broker, and the mortgage broker goes, wow, you have an $800,000 income. You can afford let's get you a $2 million house. And I don't know how much you have saved, but we can squeak out. We'll don't worry, we'll get you the down payment. And instead of them saying, you don't control my finances, I control my finances, instead they go, oh, really? I can afford a $2 million house? Yes, you can afford a $2 million house. They don't ask, well, how many other bills do you have? Do you have anything coming up? Is there anything you're trying to plan for in the future? They just tell you, this is what you can afford right now, and I want to get that commission, so I want you to get this $2 million house. And so we have to realize that we make our financial decisions.
Yes.
Real estate agents don't make our financial decisions. Mortgage brokers don't make our financial decisions. And car salesmen don't make our financial decisions. We make our decisions, and once we become conscious of how easy it is to get into that debt trap, we can work our way out of debt and then include savings and understand that savings is extremely important because of the what ifs. Yes.
Okay. And having good insurance as well. The types of insurance that you would need. It's amazing to me that some people don't have life insurance, and this is something, nobody's staying here forever, and you want to leave your family with a mountain of debt when you're gone? Right. Oh my God, I think a lot of it has to do. And we have magical thinking that it's just going to happen. It's just going to work out. No, it's not just going to work out.
No, you have to work it out.
Yes.
Oh, I've met professional people that let their car insurance lapse, and they had an accident.
Oh.
Or they went to the hospital to get cancer treatments, and they had no insurance. And they thought, well, if it cost that much money, they wouldn't have sat me down there and signed me up and let me go in there and get that chemo. And then they get a big bill in the mail. And they're like, what? Why didn't they tell me this before they treated me? Well, you had the affordable care. You could have gotten most of that paid for. Now we do. Hopefully, it may not be around very much longer, but, anybody who has the Affordable Care Act better go to the doctor hospital right now, because I just heard them talking about it. And a man came on television a man that came on television who is one of the top officials in the government was saying that people aren't using it because the deductibles and co-payments are too high, and that's simply not true, because I know lots and lots of people who use it.
Yes.
And deductibles are not applied to office visits or preventive care like colonoscopies and mammograms. So people are using it, and they can use it. And the co-payments are not that high that you can't go to the doctor. And it was really funny because he said the doctors are saying that there's lots of patients coming in here to the doctor, and they're not using their insurance because their co-payments are too high. He just
no, that doesn't even make sense. So okay, so I'm not going to use my insurance. I'm just going to pay the whole bill myself.
Right.
Come on.
Right.
That is.
I'm going to pay your $250 office visit because
that doesn't even make sense.
Right.
If I could save $100, I'm not going to do that because the deductible's too high. So I'm just going to give you $1,000 straight out. No, that doesn't make sense. Let's back that up a little bit. That's just not even basic math. That doesn't make sense. Can you share a few tips, Lois, with us? Can you share a few tips that you have in your book, 68 Powerful Ways to Save Money? And even before, if you could just touch a little bit on, I know you have a theory about money, debt, and budgeting, but if you could just touch a little bit on, you did a little bit. We receive so much marketing, Lois, and psychology is at work at all times. And marketers know psychology. They study it. They know it. They know the colors, the scents, the sounds. They know the images to put in front of us. We can listen to a Dr. Lois Center-Shabazz talk and think we're ready, but we get pummeled with these messages in email, and we get the coupons, we get the videos, we get the television, we get the radio. When we go out, we see billboards everywhere. It's hard not to give into it sometime. But can you share some of those tips you share in your book, and then also offer some suggestions when we're just pummeled with marketing? How do you stay focused on saving?
Well, the first thing you have to do is you have to develop the awareness, the conscious, what I call the conscious mindset. And that comes from going in the opposite direction, like reading my books, the Live Rich, Save Money series. Because once I find that people have the awareness, they can start filtering out all that gotta have it information. Get this, buy that. And my mantra is, before you buy anything, this is what you say. Do I need this? Do I want this? Will I use this? And will it last? And then you ask yourself, how much stuff do I have that I don't use? How much stuff do I buy that I didn't want? After I got it, I'm like, I don't want that. How much stuff have I bought that didn't last? And how much stuff have I bought that I just did not need? And I felt bad after I got it. So once you develop that affirmation, put it in your mind, you say it over and over again. You use it before you even, when people have a really bad spending addiction, I tell them just to stay out of the stores and away from the stores until you learn how to walk through a store. You always have to know it has to be in your budget. And you should always use cash. Have your cash envelope for things that you just want to buy until you get used to the fact that, you don't have to buy what you don't need, or you don't develop all this, I want to have it. I mean, if you want a bike, save up the money and do your research online. One thing about buying these days is that you can go online and you could look at websites that show you a different price for an item in 20 different places, and you can order it right there. I like the internet, but I also like to see things when I go to the store. But you can also find the prices on the internet and go to the store, so you can get lower prices. But if you're trying to get out of debt, of course, that's when you really want to develop that saving money. One of the ways is you start deleting everything you just don't need and you don't use. I have a friend that she works really hard, long hours. She's a doctor. she realized she hadn't used her cable for like 4 months. She's like, what am I paying for this for? So she cut that out.
Yes.
But you can cut out all sorts of things that you don't use, you don't need. Okay, sometimes people are paying monthly for something that they don't even know they're paying monthly for because they just, on a whim, said, oh, I'd like to have that. And the payments are being charged on their credit card, and I just haven't gotten around to canceling that. Cancel it. Go through your credit card. Make sure you cancel everything. You got to have a credit card, at least one. And you got to have a credit card because when you rent a car or stay in a hotel, they want a credit card. I mean, you can sign up with send a check for your first night, and that, of course, secures that night better than a credit card. But they want a credit card to put on file because in case you walk out, they can, or you don't come back, they can charge your stay.
Right.
But and I was in line, and I was out of town, and there was a couple in front of me, and they had won through a radio show. They won the trip to that city, and they also got them a rental car and plane tickets and everything. And the man says, I need a credit card. And she says, we don't have a credit card. And I'm like, that's really unusual. They don't even own a credit card. But they didn't. They said, we don't have one. He says, you have to have a credit card. So he said, well, she said, well, let's think about this. So they were going to call the station, I guess, and the radio station where they won the package. And so he waited on me. I don't know what he did with them, but they were out of town. But you do have to have a credit card, at least one. Probably a couple are good, put one away. But you can, there's all sorts of things when you do your inventory of your credit cards, of your home. You can stop paying for all kinds of things that you don't use. And then, of course, you want to get into mega money. You can start selling off stuff you don't need. You know, some people have rooms full of furniture they don't need. They have rooms full of items they can get rid of, and they could sell at a garage sale. I had a friend that sold $2,000 worth of stuff out of her house. She wanted to declutter. She was just decluttering. She wasn't even thinking about the amount of money she could get from it. And she went through a divorce, and she went out there and put it outside and sold it for $2,000. And that was a good little sum for her to put on her credit card. But the thing is, debt snowballs, so you need to stop charging.
Yeah, because you're going to pay interest, and the interest is generally going to go up the longer you have that debt on your credit card. My grandmother was really good at paying off. She said, if I can't pay it off within 30 days, I can't put it on my card. The longer that debt stays, that balance is there, they're going that interest is going to start ticking up. So that's another thing. That's it. You don't want to just say I have a $10,000 max on my credit card and then go drive yourself all the way up to that $10,000.
No.
How much can you afford? It's not your money. It's the bank's money.
Right.
A credit card is just tell yourself this is a loan. Then don't tell yourself anything else, because you have to pay it back. And again, you could start with low interest, an introductory credit card interest rate. It's not going to stay there.
Teaser rate. That's what they call it.
It's not going to stay there. So, yeah, be mindful when you're doing these things. Now, we've got a little less than 15 minutes. You talked about, and I will hear a lot of people when they start talking money. This is one thing I heard recently. They said that people who are like middle class, they try to grow their wealth through buying property, real estate, maybe houses and different things. But the truly wealthy invest. They get on the and Anthony Robbins is starting to give like trainings more on investments. He's known more for the mind, you can do it type of thing, how the mind works and how you can achieve your goals, but he's getting more into the investments. How much education, you said you do this, and it sounds like you taught yourself, but how much education should a, because one thing I want to say before we go into talking anything about investments, you can lose everything you have very, very quickly if you don't know what you're doing. There's no guarantees. Anybody who gives you a guarantee in investments and tells you give me $500, I can make sure it grows 12% every month, I guarantee it, run. Get away from that person because there are no guarantees with it. But how much education should a person get, and what type of education? Should they get a Series 6, a Series 7, a Series 63, just to learn more about how stocks and bonds, how the market works? But how much education should they get before they start trading on a stock market on their own?
Well, this is the thing. Middle-class people do all sorts of different things. They're all different. Rich people do all sorts of different things. They're all different, okay? One thing that most people do is the first thing they invest in is their education. If they do it right, they'll have money to live off when they get a job. If they do it wrong and get laced with heavily laced with student loans, they will have no money to live off. Or barely enough, they have to live at home to pay those student loans. So you can stop everything by doing the wrong financial decision right out of the gate. Okay, so you got to, first of all, get educated right so that you can get a job. Some people get good jobs by just working out of high school and working their way up on a job. They have a good personality and their boss likes them. They can put them into training programs, and some people, their jobs will send them back to college. I know I have about 3 or 4 friends that after college and they worked for a while, their jobs paid for them to get a master's degree, so they didn't have to go into debt. And then that's number one for anybody. Most rich people haven't always been rich, okay? So then number 2 is to get into a good house, an affordable home, because a home is an investment over time. An investment is something that happens over time. It doesn't happen real quick. I mean, you see these flippers out here. A lot of them will borrow money from an investor, and then they have to split the money in half, and then when they finish, and then they have to pay short-term capital gains taxes when they sell and get that on their half. So they're not making as much money as and then some of them, they run into more problems than they ever dreamed of flipping the house, and their costs were so high that they didn't make that much money. When all is said and done, it's very little. So homes generally, you have to have a lot of expertise and know how to do a lot of carpentry and different types of trades to do well in that. But the best the best investment you can have, of course, your education or moving your way up on a job, or because I have a few friends that moved their way up on a job out of high school, and their job sent them back to college, and they ended up doing quite well. One of them didn't even go to college, and she retired at $70,000. But those are people who have personality plus, or they know how to. They're very, very experienced with dealing with people, lots of different people, and doing what their boss tells them to do, and taking all the extra classes at work. But okay, so your job, then your home, and then you might rent it. Now, after people get their home, then they say, well, I want to make a lot of money on a rental property. Well, some do and some don't. After 40 years, you sell it, you may get a good return. But then if you didn't deduct your time and you didn't deduct as if you were paying yourself, you didn't deduct, because you don't get all the money back that you put into that rental property. If you don't deduct the lost rents and all the maintenance, you make $100,000 on a house after 30 years, a rental property, and you may only be making $10,000 if you deducted everything. So it's like a headache where you were saving money through that rental property. Money you put in is just money you got back. But okay, so your own home. Now I own my main house, and then I own a farm and a farmhouse, and then I own another house that and that I bought that with my husband. We decided to get the farm and the farmhouse because town was moving out there. First of all, it's a pine tree farm, so we make money off the pine trees, and then we lease part of it to a farmer, and then for soybeans, and then we put a house on it, and so we'll be able to sell that after a while. I mean, we could sell it now and make a profit, but also I liked it because town was moving in that direction, so that's where you get your big swings in price, and so, and then, of course, when real estate was at the very bottom during the recession, when Bush was in office, everything sunk down to zero. We bought a house that was not far from a marina, and it was in Northern California. It was $158,000, and now it's at a solid $500,000. And we have people writing us every day to buy that house, because they're developing the marina and doing some other things around there. That prices are going way up. So that was affordable for me. That was affordable for us. It was easy for us to get. We got bought at the bottom. Most people go in and they get into the propaganda mode where prices are up. That's where people lost a lot of homes during when prices went way up, when people were using those interest-only loans and they didn't understand what those were. For a $500,000 house, their payment started at $900 a month. And instead of saying, why is my payment so low for such an expensive house, instead they go, well, it must be okay because they're giving it to me. And then 2 to 3 years later, they get a letter in the mail and their house payment goes up to $4,000 and they lose their house.
Yes.
But that's number two. Just your education or moving your way up on a good job and getting your main home, and then you invest you don't have to go back to school to learn investing. I have some great books. That's why I have my series, my Live Rich, Save Money series, because it starts with 68 Powerful Ways to Save is the first one. Then I have the one on getting out of debt, the 17 amazing ways. And then I have the student loans that explain student loans to people, and a lot of people were really happy about that. I got a lot of positive feedback. They go, oh, now I know what the student loan thing is about and how people get into these big traps. And then, of course, I have my Investing Insights book, which is a Live Rich, Save Money, Learn Investing from Stocks to Mutual Funds. And you can get low-risk, low-cost mutual funds. They're just as good. You're not going to low risk means your chances of losing money is low.
Right.
And so when people talk about high risk in investing, they're talking about there's many different types of stocks. Okay, there's extremely high risk. There's the stocks that you just don't understand. Then there's the old dividend paying companies that are low risk. I have about 8 stocks, and I own about 20 mutual funds, and I've had them all I've been investing for about 25 years. And I did it by learning, researching, talking to people who had been doing it for a long time. And at one time I got a license because I was going to go and I was going to be a financial advisor, and I decided against it. I would best be a money strategist and teach others the whole package, because it's a whole package. Like you said, people get these propaganda points through the media or through other people, but as far as trading, when you see get this day trading software, that's like flipping houses, but it's even more risky. It's very risky because you're trying to guess when they day trade in and out of stocks. It's a good way to lose $100,000 fast. But if you just put $100,000 into a few mutual funds, a few dividend-paying stocks, in 20 years, you could easily have $500,000 or $600,000 in low-risk products. And that's why, but you have to understand how to research good mutual funds, and nobody tells you that. I tell you that in my book so that you'll know how to do that. But
now
I also
which one of your
give,
books?
Pardon?
We've got about a minute left. Which one of your books?
Well, I just want to.
Which one of your books teaches? Which one of your books offers the advice on the investments? Because you have several books.
Well, it's real clear. It's the Live Rich, Save Money, Learn Investing from Stocks to Mutual Fund Research in 47 Wonderful Ways. But what they can do is go to my website, MsFinancialSavvy.com, and I offer a discovery session. to see if I could help them directly. They could make an appointment with me. Just click the link on the right at it's Lois Chabazz at .acuity.com, and that's the website where I have a calendar, and they can make an appointment and get book on a discovery session with me, and I can talk about getting into my mega money management program. And of course, when they type in Leverage Save Money, they will see my name, Lois Center-Shabazz, and Amazon. They'll see all my books. But I recommend, I highly encourage booking a discovery session with me, and we can go through how I can help them make the right decisions.
You have so much to share, and it's obvious. Not just from your personal experience, things you've done and tried yourself, not something that you've heard somebody else say, and you're just repeating what they say, which is a good thing. Investments is a good way to grow wealth, but I tell anybody there are no guarantees. You don't ever want to work with somebody. There's a show that used to come on CNBC called American Greed. How many people lost everything? I mean, their entire life savings, and some people save years to save hundreds of thousands.
Fake people.
And they lost
people.
They lost it all to a Ponzi scheme. Somebody telling them we guarantee we can get you. And these are very intelligent people who fell for this stuff, and they're embarrassed that they fell for it. So when people tell you they can guarantee something when it comes to investments, run.
Well, don't deal with individual people. I tell people you only deal with major companies. There's many major companies that you can deal with. So those people are getting involved with individuals, and that's the problem.
But there also are scam businesses. There's some businesses that are set up like Ponzi schemes. But the thing is, anybody who tells you they can guarantee you a return on an investment, that is impossible. There's no reputable firm that would ever tell you that. They will always tell you when you're buying or selling that there are risks. There are no guarantees. And if anybody promises you a guarantee, I'm telling you, head for the hills. Run. You could lose everything. You could gain a lot. There are no guarantees.
What they do a lot is they'll go to, when you know it's a fake company, they'll go to elderly people and they'll tell them, okay, you can invest on our second mortgages, second trust deeds, and we'll pay you an interest rate of 15%. It's a fake person, a fake company, a fake interest rate. Or one man set up a bank in Antigua. It was a big bank, and he sent out information all over the world that he offered CDs for 12%. Well, all the other CDs were paying at that time, I think, 5 or 6%. So people jumped on it, but it was fake. It was a fake bank. He was fake. Fake CDs. He was just keeping the money when the money came in the bank. He's in prison now, but that's why and that was a foreign bank, and that's why it's important to deal with major big companies. There are many of them. T. Rowe Price, Fidelity, Charles Schwab. Those are all reputable companies, and you can get into low-risk investments. You don't have to worry about all that guaranteed stuff. Nobody's going to guarantee you anything when you're in low-risk investments. It's like buying a home. Nobody's going to guarantee you're going to buy a good home. That's why you get a plumber, an electrician, and a carpenter. You pay them $50 to go and do an inspection and see if there's any major problems, especially if it's an old home. You got to check that home for mold because you could lose it. I know one person who lost a whole home because they bought a home that had mold in it. And so there's no guarantee. You know, people are going to college and they're not getting jobs because they're going to the wrong college, getting the wrong amount of money, and the wrong degree, an obsolete degree, because they have these obsolete degrees out there that don't get them a job. So nothing with anything is guaranteed. But I'm just saying that I do deal with you have to start somewhere. You have to start with money management. You have to start with getting a decent job and saving money for a home, getting an affordable car. Then you start putting money into your 401k plan, but you got to know what that means. You have to know what those investments are in there. Otherwise, I know people who put money in a money market account because they don't know what any of the mutual funds are, and there are good mutual funds in there. and they could end up retiring with an extra $30,000 in there, or they can retire with $300,000 if they choose the right investments over 30 years. But it's all about doing your research, talking to the right people, getting the right information. Then you move on to a home. Then you move on to your savings and your extra investment accounts. And we're not talking about complicated stuff. I'm just talking about the.
I got to tell you, Dr. Lois Center-Shabazz, this topic we could. This is a topic you could talk about on a show every single week. It's that important, and when you just the student loans alone, and they have what they call predatory lenders. They know the communities to target. They know where people. And it's not based on race. It's based generally on demographic, where they feel like it could be in a rural area, an urban area, where they feel like these people don't have that. We don't think these people know any better. And these are the shopping trends. These are the trends they have with money management. Let's go get them.
Exactly.
So be very careful. This is a topic that we could go on and on and on about. I encourage you to check out Dr. Lois Center-Shabazz, her work, her books, again, and she's at MissFinancialSavvy.com, MissFinancialSavvy.com, and educate yourself. Educate yourself about finances, predatory lenders, looking out for scams. You can just they're IRS scams. There are all types of scams. Educate yourself on those. And just predatory lending, signs of a predatory lender, so you can avoid those things. And then ways to grow your savings and your wealth, and don't get suckered into every ad like you have to buy it. There's a lot of psychology behind ads. And so you, as Dr. Lois Center-Shabazz said, you're the one who's the decider of what you're going to do with your money. Nobody else can make that decision for you. So we want to thank Dr. Lois Center-Shabazz for being here with us on Off the Shelf this morning, and encourage you to educate yourself and check her out again online at MissFinancialSavvy.com, MissFinancialSavvy.com. We want to encourage you to come back next Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time or New York City time, where we will bring you another awesome guest. And again, I do hope that you will educate yourself financially and support Dr. Lois Center-Shabazz. Remember, you are incredible. You're awesome. Go out and create a fabulous day for yourself. And remember to set your clock forward an hour this weekend. It's Daylight Savings Time weekend. See you back here next Saturday, 11 a.m. Dr. Lois Chabazz, I'll send you an email. Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.